The Pelicans' comeback win over the Rockets wasn't just luck. It was proof. The grit New Orleans showed told you this team is actually different. It's the Friday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans at NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, 15-year credential member of the media, Pelicans insider, Jake Madison, ready to break down the Pelicans coming back from 24 points down to beat the Houston Rockets in overtime, 133-128. This was a bit of a statement. This was proof that the Pelicans are different than they were earlier in the year. Don't mistake that for being a good team. I don't think they are. But this team is fundamentally different than they were before, and I'm going to tell you how that grit, that toughness, and good coaching got them this victory here. I also want to look at it's a different era for Zion Williamson, not playing in the fourth quarter or overtime of this game. The franchise player not closing this one out. Oh boy. Now let's give Herb Jones, Saddiq Bey, and others love as they really stepped up to deliver a win for the New Orleans Pelicans. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen. Today and every day, we are here Monday through Friday, the number one Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 12,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. Become an everydayer. It means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. If you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. Also, don't forget, you can watch us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every single weekday at 10:30 a.m. So let's get into it. Overtime victory for New Orleans. That is 3 in a row. We are going streaking here on Locked On Pelicans. Fun time to come back and start hosting the show again after taking a couple of weeks off here. This was an impressive performance from New Orleans. The Houston Rockets are legitimate title contenders. They were 16-7 coming into this game. They had the third best offense, the fifth best defense. They had the second best net rating. When you look at all of their metrics and everything about this team with Kevin Durant on them, the Houston Rockets are a title contender. If we fast forward to the end of the season and someone tells me Houston Rockets won the NBA title, I'll be like, yeah, no problem with that. Don't really see an issue there, but I totally believe you. And New Orleans just came back from 25 points down, which ties their largest comeback ever, to beat that team. And did it with Zion Williamson on the bench, kind of barely playing, at least barely playing in the second half. This was a victory about resilience, about toughness, about grit, about pride. Down 25, they took control in the second half against the Rockets, winning the second half by a significant margin, 74-52, to get this game in overtime where, the Rockets didn't really have a chance here. They were led by Herb Jones, at times the heartbeat of this team, with his defense. 4 steals, including a bunch in a row on Kevin Durant. Durant, a top 5 NBA scorer of all time, held to just 9 points in the second half. And Herb Jones stepping up and doing that after a bit of a rough shooting first half really led by example for this team. And you just saw the energy level, the effort, the toughness all rise from the rest of the squad here. This team straight up fought. They won the 50-50 balls. They hustled for rebounds and did what they could to limit the offensive boards for the Houston Rockets, even though in the second half it was a whole lot. Or at least in the game overall, it was a whole lot. But limited it to just 10 after giving up 15 in the first half. They did what they needed to do to just get a win. And that's, at the end of the day, what matters here. I don't think this is a good team. But this is not the Pelicans that we saw before. They feel very, very different. They've got a long way to go. The first half was bad. But this team didn't roll over like they would have in the past. They fight. There's buy-in from these players under interim head coach James Borrego, who's making a heck of a case to have the gig full-time next year. You saw him have the right feel of the team, using timeouts while we're going into the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter here. They had 3 timeouts to just 1 for the Houston Rockets. That gives you an advantage to organize your squad. They had a challenge the Rockets didn't. This was just Borrego having the pulse of the team. And we'll talk more about it in the next segment around Zion Williamson. But Borrego said at the end of the game, he rolled with the group that had momentum and found ways to keep them rested so that they could close out the fourth quarter and overtime without him needing to make substitutions and go with the group that had the hot hand, which didn't include Zion Williamson. That's a gutsy call by the head coach to not play Zion Williamson, the, in theory, franchise player of this squad. And it paid off. That's not a gamble. That's Borrego knowing this team. That's why I said in the open of the show, it wasn't luck. This was this team knowing what they needed to do. Under Willie Green, this team would have rolled over. They rolled over plenty of times earlier on in the year. But here you saw them get better on defense, make adjustments coming out of halftime, and do what they needed to do to win. Things feel different. Things look different out there on the court under James Borrego. I think here's one thing that tells you this team was different here. 2-for-1s. They had a 2-for-1 and executed it pretty well at the end of the fourth quarter. That gives you the chance to either tie or win the game. It gives you the last shot, right, to potentially win the game. They had that at the end of the fourth quarter. They executed a 2-for-1 at the end of overtime. Then Herb Jones fouled Kevin Durant, sent him to the line for 3 free throws, fouled out himself, and it kind of negated the 2-for-1 advantage because at that point it was going to be the foul game played by the Houston Rockets. But in theory, New Orleans put themselves in really good positions to win either in the fourth quarter or overtime. They weren't doing this stuff before. That's the mark of a different team. You know, as I said before, I don't think this team is great. They've got a long ways to go. That first half was not good. The defense in that first half was really, really bad. This team internally thinks they have a chance at the play-in tournament, feel really good about it too. I'm not there yet. But here's the thing. While I don't know if they're good, and let's call them not good right now, they have some of the basic level stuff that you need down. Fighting, resilience, grit, pride even. You know, some belief in one another and good communication as the game went on. These were not things they had before. If you want to be competitive, let's just go with that, right? Just be competitive. You need those type of qualities, those kind of intangibles. I guess talking, communicating on the court's not an intangible. But you need those kind of things. The Pelicans were lacking all of that. Now, all of a sudden, they have a lot of that down, or they're just better at it. And look at the results starting to shift. This is a bit of a statement win. I don't care about beating Portland. I don't care about beating Chicago. Those are 2 mid at best teams. Houston Rockets, though, I think are really good. And you just punched them in the face. That is impressive from this group. Look, they're still not good. That loss to Brooklyn wasn't it. But you're starting to see them improve. They fought against the San Antonio Spurs as well, and the Spurs are a very good team as well. So you're seeing improvement. You're seeing a better level of competitiveness, and you're seeing a coach that understands his roster and how to get the most out of it and how to make the most out of it better than what we saw earlier on in the year. Pelicans might not be good, but they are not the team that we saw earlier on in the year. And you know what? Given how bad that group looked, I will take it. I will 1,000% take that. Very good and gritty and tough performance from these guys in this game. And it was impressive to see. Fun win, fun overtime win. The Smoothie King Center, not full. There was like no one in the upper bowl, but the lower bowl and the people that were there made that place loud and rocking and a lot of fun to be at. It's great when this team wins games because people show up. And this is the type of win that will get a lot more locals to take note around the team here. The other big story from this game, you could argue it's even bigger than them just winning and coming back in overtime and showing the grit and all the things that I just said, is Zion Williamson didn't play in the fourth quarter or overtime. And that is kind of shocking. This is a larger picture take around this team. That's what I want to look at next, coming up here in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by DoorDash. The season's heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. So whether you're watching highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. And now with DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. There are nights when your team stresses you out. Don't let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need dessert now. And those late-night interviews hit, and suddenly you need chips at midnight because you're staying up to catch all the highlights. You're staying up late to watch Locked On Pelicans. DoorDash is built exactly for that. So from tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, and gear, whatever gets you through the season, delivered right to your door. DoorDash in your bag all season long. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances. Because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Rocket Money finds subscriptions you forgot. Those add up really quickly. And it's also just the worst feeling when you get like dinged for like $9.99. And you're like, come on. You forgot you were paying for those. Let Rocket Money clean them up for you. You can also see your spending all in one dashboard, and it makes it easier to understand where your money is going. And I like how Rocket Money automatically builds budgets based on past spending. It keeps you on track without overthinking it. So take control over your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join over 12,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. It means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. For your second listen, if there was a Locked On Tulane, I would tell you to go listen to that. Maybe Locked On Ole Miss. I will be at the game. I'm excited for that. But it's Locked On Saints with host Ross Jackson, who officiated the wedding, by the way. Go make Locked On Saints your second listen today. Potential winnable game against the Jets. I'm excited to see how Tyler Shook keeps what he keeps doing here. Make Locked On Saints your second listen today. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Big story out of this game, other than the win, is Zion Williamson not playing in the fourth quarter or overtime. You know, they were coming back, they were starting to win, and Zion Williamson came off of the bench in this one. And the purpose of bringing him off the bench, according to head coach James Borrego, and we saw it against the Chicago Bulls in the previous game too, is have him ready for the fourth quarter, have him feeling fresh, kind of use his minutes most efficiently, most effectively. Well, you didn't need to worry about that in this game because he didn't play in the fourth quarter or overtime, which frankly I find stunning. Stunning. This is a guy who wants to become the head coach of the team next season. Winning games is how you do that. You know, usually you're going to win games when you play your best players. But Zion Williamson didn't in this game. You know, when you look at the group that got them this win, including Saddiq Bey, Derik, Herb Jones, who all played, 35 plus minutes in this one. I'm going to sneeze, so I apologize for that here. You look at that. Saddiq Bey plus 21, Derik plus 18, Herb Jones plus 19 in this one, and Zion Williamson in 21 minutes coming off the bench minus 17. I'm going to pause for dramatic effect and to sneeze here for you. Okay. That says a lot here. I've come around on plus minus as an individual stat in the box score. I used to not like it because I do think lineups matter for that sort of thing. But it also just says, are you winning your minutes or not? And at the end of the day, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you need to do. And that matters. So I like this stat now, somewhat, within reason. Watching Saddiq Bey, Derik, Herb Jones, that checks out with what they were doing, I thought. Zion Williamson, though, 3 of 9 from the field in this one, 5 assists, 3 boards, minus 17 on the night for 9 points, is not a great performance. He didn't look particularly good. He wasn't helping them win games, and they rolled with the guys that were. That's a heck of a call by James Borrego, a risky, gutsy call, but one that ended up being correct, that he kind of knew was going to be correct because, well, he has a pretty good feel for the team here. To not play Zion Williamson in overtime when Zion only played 21 and a half minutes, so he is fresh, is saying something. If you lose the game, we would be being like, what was he doing? Why didn't he do that? But clearly kind of Borrego knows this team, knows these guys. And this kind of signals, to me, I'm not ready to make this big declarative statement yet, but it's also kind of in there that like things are a little bit different here for Zion Williamson all of a sudden. I would imagine he'll go back to starting, but if they keep winning games and he's coming off the bench, I don't know if they're going to change that as quick as we might expect them to do. This also says like, hey, Zion, you're not the guy anymore. The people who are supposed to be the man close games. Had New Orleans lost this game, and, at times it looked like they were going to, I was going to, particularly when we got into the fourth quarter, and you have Kevin Durant, who is a closer. Guy can go out, win you the game. Does New Orleans really have that guy? They did in Saddiq Bey tonight, which is incredible. We'll talk more about him later. It's got to be someone like Zion Williamson. And if you're not going to be that closer, what role does he have exactly on this team? If they can win these kind of games, and again, it's one game. Let's see them do this more, but it's a stepping stone. You have really big questions about what his long-term role is on the team. When I talked about Derik Queen kind of unlocking Trey Murphy and some of those things with the squad the 2 days ago, the big question was, can Zion Williamson be a role player? Can he work off ball? And I'm skeptical about that because their minutes with Derik Queen and Zion have not been particularly great together. This is one of those games that kind of, I don't want to say solidifies that, but makes you wonder, yeah, like maybe it's the Zion era is done. You don't close the fourth quarter with, the guy who, let's just say he's the most talented player on the team right now. Ceiling's the highest of what he could be, even though it's year 7. That is stunning to me, truthfully, right? Like, don't you almost feel forced to play Zion Williamson in the fourth quarter in overtime? And if you don't feel forced to do that anymore, that says a lot about Zion's place on the team and what it means going forward. And I want you to think about that, not in terms of this game, not in terms of this one big game, right? Borrego said the group that closed the game out, that played in overtime, those guys had momentum. And look, he was completely correct. It was the other guys, right? Jose Alvarado, Herb Jones, Derik Queen, Saddiq Bey, Trey Murphy had the momentum. You may as well play them. Those are who closed out the game for New Orleans. Okay, good. But what's it say in the larger picture if this is going to be kind of a regular thing for Zion Williamson? And I think that's what's so surprising to me here, that it feels like this is a slight changing of the guard. When you look at the fourth quarter, to overtime, that group of guys is who also closed the game out for New Orleans. That was a particularly impressive group. Like, they looked very, very good and got the Pelicans that win. And it doesn't include Zion, which is really, truly saying something. That group played the final 9 minutes of Q4 pretty much together and were the catalyst for all of it. That's what you want to see from those guys. They got to the line. They made their shots. Saddiq Bey, 11 points in the final, what range did I did? 9.5 minutes of the fourth quarter. Trey Murphy closing the game out for you, 6 points. Derik Queen with 6, just doing everything they needed to do and limiting second chance points for the Houston Rockets here. It was an impressive group. You want to roll with those guys more if they're going to give you the best chance to win, and that's kind of what it feels like right now. And this says, hey, Zion, your place on the team is not in stone anymore. And that if things don't change with him quickly, it's going to look dramatically different. I don't know if they trade him this year. I don't know what might happen this season, but it feels like if this is how things are going to be, and it's one game, we'll see if it continues, he's not going to have a place. It's just as clear as that. You can waive him, you can try and trade him, and this team feels good in a sense about that, especially after getting this win over a very, very good Houston Rockets team. They That Rockets team's good, y'all. I really believe that. And so to get this victory, and again, it's one game. Let's keep that in mind. But you see the base things we've needed to see from them. And does Zion fit into that? Does Zion, feel like a gritty guy to you, a tough guy to you, right? A resilient type of player to you. Has Zion ever been a closer for a team in overtime, fourth quarter? Yeah, times, but hasn't done it consistently, I don't think. And so that says something too. And for them to just leave him off the bench is just one of those like, whoa kind of moments in terms of the big picture. It says what does Borrego feel about him, right? Willie Green would have probably played Zion because he would have felt kind of obligated to. Borrego didn't in a game where, like, if you keep losing, you're not going to be the head coach of the team next year, and he wants to be. So this is an eye-opening kind of paradigm-shifting moment, in my opinion. Coming up next, let's look at the role players. Saddiq Bey, Herb Jones, really stepping up in this one. I thought they were particularly impressive. Let's go back to those guys. It's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. So that's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. So whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. And Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits can save you hours every single week. You can also reach a certified HR expert anytime, which is going to give you real peace of mind. So try Gusto at gusto.com/lockedonnba and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right. 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnba. One more time. That's gusto.com/lockedonnba. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 12,000. I can never get that right. Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. Give Dylan Sanders a shout out for hosting the show in my absence while I was on my honeymoon in Thailand. Wife came with me to the game. That was kind of fun. First Pelicans game as a married couple was pretty cool to be there for everything. So happy to be back. It's been a fun week. We've had a lot of time off to talk about other things too. Look at the big picture, but it's also fun to talk about these games and what they mean, even if the season's kind of lost. I'm telling you, they internally believe they can make the in-season or the play-in tournament, which could be a good or bad thing, and we will debate that at some point next week. So let's look at the role players stepping up for New Orleans here. Let's start with Herb Jones. He didn't have a great first half. There was a stretch where he missed 3 straight corner threes, and it was like, oh, you kind of gotta make those. He was 1 of 5 from 3 in the first half for 5 total points on 2 of 9 shooting. Not particularly good numbers. But then you saw him really clamp down on someone like Kevin Durant, and he started to look incredible. He had 8 steals in this game. 8 steals for Herb Jones. The shot started falling in the second half. He had 18 points overall. He was 7 of 14. He rebounded from that. And it's more what I talked about in the beginning part of the show. His effort made everybody play harder. You hear Antonio Daniels on the broadcast talk about this a lot. You lead by example, and it just makes everybody play more. Look, if Zion Williamson played through injury more, other guys would play through injury. If Zion Williamson is diving for loose balls, fighting for 50-50 balls, and he does at times, this is not a knock on Zion, this is not meant to be like trash Zion, other guys would do more of that. You kind of go with your leaders and the example that they set. Herb Jones, the way he played in this one, absolutely inspired everybody else. Any sort of trade deal you see where people or another team's getting him for cheap is not going to happen. You saw his importance to this team or to every team in the league. Look, they maybe need to consider trading him. That's another discussion, another story. But it's not going to happen because you see that tonight. And what he did for this team and how he was the catalyst for all of it made Saddiq Bey play better. Saddiq Bey was the leading shot taker for New Orleans, the leading scorer for New Orleans in this one. 29 points, 11 of 18 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3, getting to the line, 9 rebounds, 8 of them defensive, an assist, 2 steals. He was awesome. I was worried about the Pelicans going into the fourth quarter when you realized Zion Williamson wasn't going to play, because who's the closer? You have Kevin Durant who can go and just get his shot and do Kevin Durant things, and yeah, he did a bunch of that, particularly in the first half. But I was worried that he was going to close this game out. 9 points in the fourth quarter. Okay, he was 4 or 5. That's scary because he's that good. Who's that guy for New Orleans? Who was going to step up and do that? It was Saddiq Bey. It was Saddiq Bey. I didn't exactly have Saddiq Bey on my bingo card for that, but yeah, that's who it was. He was just doing what you needed to do. Driving, making his shots at the rim, making the 3 he took in the fourth quarter, the 3s he took overall. He was outstanding. When you need someone to step up and play better, Saddiq Bey did that. Longtime Locked On Pelicans listeners know I'm a Saddiq Bey fan. When he came into the draft, I wanted them to take him. I think it was over Kyra Lewis Jr. in that draft, if I remember correctly. Big Saddiq Bey fan over here. Glad to finally see him on the team, and it's really great to see him succeeding in the way that he is at this point in time. Yeah, Pelicans took Kyra Lewis Jr. at 13th. They got Saddiq Bey eventually. It's nice to see him stepping up, these other guys stepping up. You need those guys to do it because it inspires others. If the role players are doing it, the star players have to do it as well. You saw that in this one. If they can kind of keep that going forward, you're going to see great play. Trey Murphy, I thought, was good in this one too, steady throughout the whole game. It's going to make everybody rise up. That's what we want to see here in New Orleans. You want to see the fight, the effort, a team that doesn't look like they quit. You are seeing that from this game. Let's see if they continue it. That's going to be the key. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans, this week of Locked On Pelicans. I appreciate y'all so much for listening. I'm so thrilled to be back with y'all. Excited to be here. We'll be here the rest of the season going forward. We'll see what happens. I'm Jake Madison at Nola Jake on Twitter. This is Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Roll wave. See y'all on Monday.